The rain came out of nowhere that night. One moment the roads were clear, the next they were slick mirrors reflecting the blur of headlights. My hands gripped the wheel of the car I had worked 2 years to buy, a beat-up gray Honda, but it was mine. Paid for with double shifts at the diner, late nights cleaning offices, every spare dollar scraped together. I was driving home from work when the truck swerved. Its taillights fishtailed, and before I could react, the metal slammed into my front end. The sound was deafening, a crunch of steel and glass, my body thrown sideways, airbag exploding, my head hit hard, pain ringing through my skull. The world spun. The car hissed, steam curling into the night. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, the screen smeared with blood from a cut on my forehead. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. The first number I dialed was my dad's. "Dad," I gasped when he answered. "It's me, Hannah. I've been in a crash. I'm on 5th and Maple. Please, I need help. I'm bleeding." His voice cut in, sharp, annoyed. "Bleeding? What do you want me to do about it? You always make everything dramatic." "Dad, I can't move my leg." "Figure it out. I don't have time for this. Your sister's got her manicure tonight, and I promised I'd take her. That matters more than you laying around whining." The line clicked dead. I stared at the phone in disbelief, the blood dripping down my temple. My own father, the man who had lectured me my whole life about being tough, had just chosen nail polish over his daughter bleeding in the street. The rain poured harder. A couple in a passing car pulled over, rushing toward me. "We called an ambulance," the woman said, her voice urgent. "Just stay awake." I clutched her hand as the sirens grew closer, my chest heaving, vision blurring. By the time they loaded me into the ambulance, I knew 2 things. 1, I was alive because strangers cared more than my own family. 2, something in me had snapped. At the hospital, stitches pulled across my forehead, bruises bloomed across my ribs, my leg wrapped in a brace. And not a single familiar face walked through the door. No mother, no father, no sister. But the nurse's phone buzzed on her cart, and I caught a glimpse of the notification lighting her screen. A social media post. My sister Chloe, grinning at a nail salon, captioned, "Daddy-daughter night, priorities." My father sat in the background of the picture, scrolling on his phone, his hand resting proudly on Chloe's shoulder. My stomach twisted, but my heart went cold. That was the night I stopped being their daughter. That was the night Hannah, the forgotten child, died on the roadside with shattered glass at her feet. And the woman who rose from that blood and rain, she wasn't going to beg for their love anymore. She was going to take something they couldn't ignore. Not their attention, not their fake apologies. Something much sharper. The hospital released me 2 days later. My forehead was stitched, my ribs wrapped, and my leg braced stiff in a heavy plastic cast. I could barely walk. When the nurse asked who would be picking me up, I gave her my father's number again, even though a voice inside screamed not to. He didn't answer. So, the nurse wheeled me outside, and I climbed awkwardly into the back of a cab, every bump in the road burning my ribs. When I opened the front door of our house, the sound of laughter hit me before the smell of acetone and takeout. There they were. Dad, stretched on the couch, remote in hand, Chloe sitting cross-legged beside him with her nails held up for admiration, Mom snapping photos for her feed. "Back already?" Dad said flatly, not even turning the volume down. Chloe glanced up and snorted. "Wow, you look like roadkill." Mom wrinkled her nose. "Couldn't you have cleaned up before coming home? You'll stain the furniture." I stood in the doorway, the plastic bag of discharge papers hanging from my hand. "I was in a hospital bed while you were painting her nails," I said, my voice trembling. Dad didn't flinch. "And? You lived. Don't make everything about you." I wanted to scream. Instead, I limped past them, dragging my brace into the hallway, each step a reminder of how easily they had left me to bleed. Over the next week, the house became a parade of cruelty. Chloe strutted around like a queen, showing off her gel polish, bragging to anyone who would listen about her night out with Dad. Every time my brace clunked against the floor, she smirked. "Maybe you should crawl. Dogs don't need legs to beg." Mom laughed every time, never correcting her. Dad's eyes flicked from his phone long enough to add, "She's not wrong. You've always been dead weight." The words carved deeper than the stitches on my forehead. So. But in the silence of my room, something else was happening. I sat with my notebook, the same one I had once used to tally bills and scribble grocery lists, and started writing their words down. Not to expose them. Not this time. Exposure only embarrassed them for a moment. Then they went right back to laughing. No, this wasn't about showing anyone else. This was about building something they couldn't laugh off. I flipped the page and started a new list, things they couldn't live without. Not money, not praise, but small, petty luxuries. The manicure appointments Chloe needed to feel superior, the weekly poker games Dad bragged about like he was king of the table, the Sunday brunches Mom lived for, where she showed off her perfect family to anyone who would listen. They thought I was powerless, stuck in rags and bandages, but they had one blind spot. They assumed I would never fight back. And that's why I started planning. The first step was information. My job at the diner had taught me more than how to balance trays. It taught me how careless people became when they felt untouchable. My parents and Chloe were no different. They tossed receipts in the trash without a glance. They left salon appointment cards on the counter. They laughed over brunch reservations loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I started collecting. Receipts tucked into the pages of my notebook. Appointment cards photographed and stored. Dates and times noted in red ink. The second step was silence. If I showed anger, they'd know I was planning. If I argued, they'd crush me harder. So I smiled faintly when they mocked me, nodded when Chloe bragged about her new shoes, even brought Dad his beer when he barked for it. I let them believe I was broken. But in my mind, the plan sharpened. The crash had taken my car. My father's neglect had taken my dignity, but I still had my will, and I was going to aim it where it hurt them most. The week before my stitches came out, Chloe burst into my room without knocking. She picked up my phone from the nightstand, scrolling through without permission. No one texted you," she laughed, tossing it onto the bed. Then she caught sight of my notebook. "What's this? Homework for losers?" I snatched it from her hands, clutching it to my chest. "None of your business." She tilted her head, smirking. "You think you're clever, scribbling in your little diary? No one cares, Hannah. You could die in the street tomorrow, and Dad would still take me for brunch." Her words were knives, but instead of bleeding, I hardened. That night, I sat at my desk with the lamp casting a sharp circle of light. I flipped open the notebook, staring at the list I'd built. My hand hovered with the pen before writing one final line across the top. Make them beg for what they took for granted. And with that, the plan shifted from fantasy to inevitability. They thought leaving me bleeding in the street made me weak. But it had made me patient. And patience is the sharpest blade. The morning my stitches came out, I tied my hair back, stared at the thin scar on my forehead, and whispered to myself, "This is where it turns." I didn't go back to begging for love. I went back to listening, watching, and waiting. The first strike was Chloe. Her manicure appointments were the highlight of her week. She strutted around, showing off her nails like they were jewels, parading them in photos while tagging the salon. She booked every Thursday at the same time. So that Thursday, while she was still asleep, I slipped her appointment card out of her purse, called the salon pretending to be hers, and canceled. I replaced it with a fake card, a number I set up myself. The next week, she strutted in expecting royal treatment, only to find no slot, no record of her name. Nothing. She pitched a fit in front of the whole place, clawing at the counter while women in the lobby laughed under their breath. By the time she stormed home, her perfect nails chipped from nervous biting, she was furious. "Dad!" she wailed. "They humiliated me. They said I wasn't even on the list." Dad's response? "Figure it out. I don't have time for this." Her eyes burned when they met mine, suspicion flickering, but she couldn't prove a thing. The second strike was Dad. His poker nights weren't about money. They were about pride. Every Saturday he boasted like he was the king of cards, coming home bragging about how he crushed those losers. So I slipped into his study one afternoon and pulled out the deck of cards he always carried to games. With careful hands, I shaved the corners of certain cards and replaced a few with fakes that bent easily under pressure, subtle enough that no one could see but obvious to a trained player. That Saturday, he came home red-faced, slamming the door. "They accused me of cheating," he spat, pacing like a caged animal. "Me! Said my deck was rigged." Mom frowned. "You didn't?" "Of course not," he barked. But the doubt lingered. His poker buddies avoided him after that. Their trust cracked. His reputation collapsed in the only circle that ever fed his ego. The third strike was Mom. Her Sunday brunches were her kingdom. She loved sitting with church ladies, gossiping, bragging about her perfect family. So I got up early one Sunday, long before they stirred, and swapped her design purse with one that looked nearly identical but was stuffed with receipts, evidence of bounced checks, overdue bills she hid from the others, and notes I'd written mimicking her handwriting. "Don't forget to beg Hannah for rent money." When she reached into her bag at brunch, the pile spilled across the table. The ladies froze, eyes widening at the mess of debt and desperation. Mom's face drained as she scrambled, stammering excuses, her queenly image shattered in front of the only people she wanted to impress. By the time she came home, her hands shook. She slammed her ruined purse on the counter and hissed at Dad, "They'll never respect me again." Piece by piece, they crumbled. Chloe with her bitten nails, Dad with his ruined poker pride, Mom with her brunch throne demolished. They didn't know how or why it was happening, only that the world no longer bent to them the way it once did. And I sat back, quiet, steady, letting it unfold. The begging began 2 weeks later. Dad cornered me in the hallway, his voice lower than I'd ever heard. "You've always been good with money. Help me get back into the game. They won't play with me anymore." Mom followed, her tone desperate. "Maybe you could talk to the brunch girls for me? Fix my image?" Chloe slammed her chipped nails on the table. "Book me another appointment. I can't show my face like this." I let them talk over each other, all of them demanding, pleading in their own way, the same people who had left me bleeding in the street now circling like beggars. I leaned back, arms crossed, my voice calm and sharp. "Funny, you didn't have time for me when I was bleeding out on Maple Street. You didn't have time to pick me up from the hospital. You didn't have time when I needed a father, a mother, a sister. And now you want me to fix your nails, your pride, your gossip table?" They fell silent, the weight of my words pressing on them harder than the rain had pressed on me that night. I stood, grabbing my notebook from the counter, flipping it open to the page where their cruelties were scrawled in ink. I set it down in front of them. "This is what you gave me, every line of it. And this," I gestured at their hollow faces, "this is what I've given back." No yelling, no grand reveal, just balance restored. I walked past them, my brace clicking against the floor, Ethan's small hand slipping into mine. Behind me, their voices rose, no longer mocking, no longer cruel, just desperate. Begging, exactly as I had planned. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.